Last week on Kauai, a bus driver was arrested for DUI with kids on board.
This morning, there's questions about state oversight of our school bus system. And joining us over Skype is civilbeat.com reporter Chad Blair. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning, Jill and Mahia.
Well, as we were saying, there was an audit of the DOE's Student Transportation Branch. So what did that audit find?
Well, this audit was not very flattering to the DOE. It argued there were serious mismanagement and staffing problems. Now, concerning this bus driver in Kauai, I mean, imagine that, arrested for a DUI on a school bus with kids on board. It turns out that bus contractors are supposed to submit a list of drivers' names and information, including whether or not they have a clean criminal record history. And in fact, they have not always done that. So some questions about the quality of our bus drivers. We can tell you the DOE is concerned. They say that they do a one-time background check of their school bus drivers.
And this is information parents certainly would want to know.
I would certainly think so.
Yeah. Chad, Civil Beat also has a story on the redrawing of political district boundaries. It's still an issue. What's happening now with reapportionment?
Well, it's all up to the Supreme Court. The 8 people that are suing the state, and one of them, by the way, is Mark Takai, the state representative, and he's now running for Congress. They now have appealed their case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they could decide whether to take up the case later this year. Basically, they're arguing that about 100,000 military personnel, primarily on Oahu, were excluded from voter rolls, and they feel that that's unconstitutional. The state, however, says those military personnel are not defined as permanent residents. But imagine if the Supreme Court comes back and says, you got to redo your plans. Man, it was messy enough the first time. We may have to do it another time.
Oh, no. All right. Well, finally, the State Department of Human Services said it needed a new software system to comply with the Affordable Care Act. So what's the latest on the upgrade?
Well, we're talking about Obamacare, and that's something that is required. So the contract that went out was for $90 million. KPMG won the contract. They're a huge firm. But it turns out there was another company, a smaller company with lots of experience in this area. It's called Engage Point. Their bid was actually $24 million less. But the DHS rescored their contract proposals. In other words, they did it twice. The second time around, the smaller company lost out. They say they're not going to complain because this is a matter of public health interest, but it makes you kind of wonder how the big guys got the big contract.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
All right, Chad. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me and reading civilbeat.com.
And you can find the complete stories that we just discussed on the website that Chad just mentioned, civilbeat.com.